lived in Iceland in 1992, and when I first got there, it was just a couple months later that President Bush, the first President Bush, sent Marines and Army off to Somalia. That was an operation that I volunteered to go for. My name wasn't picked. I was still a little junior at that time. Little did I know that, about 12 years later, I would actually be in the Horn of Africa and actually step across the border into Somalia. While I was in Africa, I was the Director of Civil Military Operations, and that job, I directed all the humanitarian assistance projects and coordinated U.S. military and U.S. government activities with host nations throughout the Horn of Africa. Part of that job was also interacting with all the local government officials and also all the people in the local villages. Things that I learned there are directly translated to here in Oregon. Those people, they want elected leaders who represent them, have their best interests in heart, come back and talk to them and ask them what is important to you, and answer honestly and openly the questions that are put to them, to let them know that we are working for you. The challenges that they had there are some of the similar challenges that we have here. Theirs are just much more extreme. Here, we have challenges with our infrastructure, with our manufacturing and logistics base, the number of jobs that we have. We actually need to have more jobs here, and some of the things that I found over in Africa that prevented them from having jobs in a growing economy are some of the same things that keep us from having a growing economy here in Oregon. And that is our transportation corridors, our logistics corridors. Our heavy rail system does not support manufacturing here in Oregon, especially up here in the 1st Congressional District. And that's something that we can bring back to this area. With an investment in some logistics and manufacturing, we can bring jobs back to the area. Tying into that is our education system. Our education system needs to be geared for a 21st century and a 20th century. We will never have a robust economy if we don't include manufacturing and all sectors of a robust, well-rounded economy. Thank you.
Okay. Rob Cornilles.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rob Cornilles, Republican running in the 1st Congressional District. I want to thank all the veterans and organizations who helped us be here tonight. And I also want to extend my appreciation to you for your service, both today and in the past. And I want to honor those candidates on the stage tonight who have also given their life service to our country. I am a born and raised Oregonian. I was born in the Portland area, raised in Washington County, and grew up in Yamhill County as well, as did my wife. We've been married almost 24 years, Allison and I, and we have 3 sons, ages 20, 16, and 13. I started a business about 15 years ago in the city of Tualatin, and in that time, our company, which is called Game Face, has grown to be a leader in our industry around the country and even internationally. And the reason why we were able to do this is because we live in a country that has provided us freedoms, opportunities, not only to succeed, but also to fail. And I am very concerned that the freedoms that many of you in this room fought to preserve for us are being stripped away from the American public today. The sacrifices that have been made are being jeopardized now because I believe of poor representation, poor planning, and sometimes even nefarious purposes. And though those of us on the stage may differ in how we're going to improve our country's lot, and certainly those of us in different parties will differ on many of the issues, I think the one thing all 5 candidates on the stage could agree with is that we're here tonight because of the person who is not here tonight. Because he does not have the regard to come and speak with the voters, the people who've put him in office for the last 12 years, those who have asked him to represent their interests. I plan to represent your interests because I know if you're like me, your interests, your priorities, your values have not been reflected in the representation that we have. I want to give you a quick story to indicate this in my life. About a year ago, my youngest son, whose name is Chad, he and I were sitting on the couch. We were watching a television program about the increasing debt that our country is racking up right now. And it was a sobering news story. And to mind you, this was a year ago, before much of the legislation that we've recently seen was passed. And it went to a commercial, thankfully, and I muted the television, and my son, my little 12-year-old at the time, he looks at me and he says, "Dad, Am I going to have to pay for all that? Now, at first I chuckled, but then as I looked at it in his eyes, he wasn't joking. And I think my son was asking me, Dad, where did all the adults go? Have the grown-ups left the building? And I'm here tonight to let you know that I put aside my business, my privacy, because what I need to do is what my ancestors have done and what many of you have done, and that is do something greater for myself and fight for my country. I hope for your support. Thank you.
John?
Before you start the timer, I like this mix. I wish this was Congress. Well, good evening, everybody. Let me first start by thanking you all for your service and the opportunity to be here this evening. What do we as Americans cherish and value most?
Freedom.
That's right. Our God-given individual rights, our liberty, and our freedom. Freedom is what America is about. It's our strength and our moral high ground. Freedom is under threat again today, folks. We're at a crossroads. These are some of the most important elections of our lifetime. I'm John Kuzmanich. I'm the owner of U.S. Nationwide Mortgage. My education is in economics. My experience is in finance, housing, real estate, job creation, balancing a budget, and making a payroll. All the relevant issues of the day. I'm a fiscal conservative who believes in American exceptionalism, limited constitutional government, free markets, lower taxes, and deregulation. My father fled communist Yugoslavia. He came here for a better life and served this country as a United States Marine. He taught me a love of this country I have carried with me my entire life. He taught me through hard work that you can become anything you want in America, that this is the land of opportunity. I'm running for Congress because I see this, the America I love, slipping away. I see a government that's punishing success and rewarding failure and wondering why there aren't any jobs. I see job creators and entrepreneurs, the backbone of job creation, being taxed out of existence right when we need them most. The leadership of both parties is out of touch with the American people. They're placing debt on our future, our children, and generations yet born. That, by very definition, will result in taxation without representation. It is wrong and it's un-American. The leadership of both parties, again, are out of touch. They're placing the debt, but something's happening in America. I know it because I've been a part of it. From the town halls to the tea parties, the Reagan majority is reforming and it transcends party lines. Reagan appealed to conservative Democrats and independents alike, and he did this not by ditching his values and principles, but by sticking to them and telling people he represented we the people, not them the government. They're Democrats and Republicans. We're Americans. We got to get back to what works and put America back to work. We must reduce the size and scope of the federal government. We have to stop the reckless spending. Our government must live within its means. We must pursue energy independence, all forms, and we must address the balance of individual and state rights versus the federal governments. We must also keep our country safe from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And finally, we must uphold the Constitution of the United States, all of it, especially when it gets in the way of government. That was its intent. It keeps us free. There's an awakening happening. It's an undeniable energy to set this country right, and I'm a fighter for Main Street for us because I'm one of us, and it's going to take a fighter to defeat David Wu. But I can't do this alone. I need your support, and most importantly, your vote. I promise to fight for you, freedom, prosperity, and jobs, jobs, jobs. God bless you all, and God bless America.
Thank you for coming tonight. It's kind of hard to always go after Rob and John here because they're such wonderful speakers. I'm just going to tell a little story and I'll keep it short. In August of 1776, Rod had fought gallantly at the Battle of Long Island and covered the retreat of George Washington's army across the East River. They would fight boldly for 8 long years, all for an idea. After the engagement, Danny would have to go back to Pennsylvania and tell his wife that their only son had been musketed by the British, captured, exchanged, but died from his wounds, while one of his brothers was wounded and now rots on a filthy British prison ship in Hudson. All for this idea. Luke was offered release from the British ship if he would abandon his silly ideas and swear allegiance to the crown. His family honor would not allow him to capitulate. He was eventually exchanged in March of 1777. After being wounded again at Brandywine, Luke would join his brothers at Valley Forge as one of George Washington's last 2,500 patriots. All for an idea. All for the idea of liberty, freedom, and limited government. We patriots We conservative few, are now being offered a socialist prison ship in exchange for our liberty. We only have to give up 234 years of liberty, freedom, limited government, and limited taxation. We only have to give up on the Constitution. We only have to accept huge government, huge taxation, and cradle-to-grave control of our lives as a solution to our government's fiscal recklessness. We only have to look the other way while the Crown, the federal government, shackles our children to lifelong socialist servitude. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot let this happen. While at Valley Forge, my great-uncle, Daniel Broadhead, a colonel, was the first officer to talk about war widow pensions and education benefits for the enlisted men. He had grave concern for the well-being of his men and took great lengths to better the conditions at Valley Forge. He was a mentor, a proven leader, and would become one of Washington's generals. My father retired from the Strategic Air Command, served two tours in Southeast Asia. I'm proud to have served in the Guard and Reserve from 1977 to 2006. I believe in patrioting war and servant in peace. I believe in objectivity more than subjectivity. I believe that what we do as engaged tax-paying citizens is just as important as military service at this juncture. I also say that while our soldiers fight for the liberty and freedoms of other peoples abroad, our own government is seeking to take our liberty and freedoms here at home. I remember the stories my father would tell at the kitchen table about the Great Depression, with rationing, scrap metal drives, and war bonds. I remember my German mother telling me stories about Hitler's Germany. They taught me the value of the dollar. They taught me to save for the future and never be a burden on society. They taught me that there is shame in nanny state welfare. It's too bad Bob Bernanke, Obama, and David Wu didn't have dinner with us. Okay, I'll summate this at the end here. It says, at the Battle of Bastogne in 1944, when asked if he would surrender to the Nazis, General Anthony Clement McAuliffe replied, nuts. Let's tell the current huge government-industrial complex, our military-industrial complex, our entitlement-industrial complex, our drug company profit entitlement industrial complex, and our healthcare industrial complex nuts. Thank you.
Doug?
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, candidates, for being here. Especially thanks to David. This is a tough environment for you here. You guys did good work, so I appreciate that. That's courage.
Us Naval Academy guys will do it.
That's very good. All right, so I got a quote for everybody here tonight. Ask not what you can do for your country. Ask what your country can do for you. Is that the right quote? Is that the country we're supposed to be living in? No. No. But that's what we're asking these days. Now, if you're a member of the Kennedy Democrats, that's where you are today, and he's probably sleeping well and resting well. But if you're a member of the John Fitzgerald Kennedy Democrats, who believed in individual rights and individual freedom and democracy and a good, strong national defense, then I'm here to talk to you and ask you to really reconsider your party affiliation, because I think your party has left you behind. And I wanted to invite you to the Republican Party. All right, so that said, who am I? I'm a retired Navy commander, retired in 2007, spent 20 years in the Navy as a helicopter pilot. I graduated from the Naval Academy in 1987, and then I spent the time before that at Sunset High School, right here, and I grew up in a home which is within a small business. My mom here in the crowd tonight ran her own small business out of our home, so I got to see what that was like up close. And then before that, we had kind of an interesting family history. My dad was a concentration camp survivor from World War II. He actually was in the Dutch East Indies when the Japanese invaded that country and put everybody into a concentration camp, and it was the United States that busted him out. So there's probably, I think I see a couple of you guys that might have been there, been a part of that, so thank you for your service. I wouldn't be here without you. So so when my dad got out of the concentration camp, we went to New Zealand, and that's where he recovered and he met my mom. And that's where I was born. But unfortunately, at the time in New Zealand, the government was so socialistic and so much in control of things that there was no opportunity there. So what my family had to do, what my dad decided to do, was go to the country where the opportunity was, and that was the United States. So we did that legally. And we jumped through a lot of hoops to get here. We went through Canada. We stayed in Canada for 3 years, lived on a farm in North Battleford, Saskatchewan. We watched the people that were hiding up there from the Vietnam War. We were disgusted with that because we wanted to come to the country where the opportunity was. And we finally made it here. And so that's where I grew up. And I had the opportunity to get the appointment to the Naval Academy for Mark Hatfield, and the rest is history. And so here I am sitting today, and I come back from my 2007 retirement, and I see that the country, I spent my 20 years defending the Constitution against the foreign enemies, and now I see that we're under attack by the domestic enemies. And I don't want to see the Constitution thrashed. So that's why I'm in this. I feel strongly about it, and I want to stand up for you, and I'm asking for your vote.
I have received a comment asking about David Wu. David Wu was invited by a letter from me, as were all the other 5 candidates, asking him to attend this particular item. He was also given follow-up calls as the other campaigns were, and I don't believe there were any faxes. Did we do any faxes to any of the candidates?
He has votes on the House floor right now.
Emails, okay. Excuse me?
He has votes on the House floor right now in Washington, D.C.
And again, we also, thank you for that. So David Wu decided not to send a representative, and he's currently in session. And that's why I understand he is not present for representatives. Having said that, we'll now go to the heart of the actual meeting. That's the actual question and answer period. The first person should have 358 as a ticket. The lucky winner. Okay, I believe you, so having said that, what candidate would you like to ask the question to? You directed your question to a candidate, and then they'll have 1 minute to respond, and then what will happen is other candidates will get to answer if they so choose.
I'm actually going to ask John a question. Is that how you say it?
Actually, we have a microphone right here that helps. I think my voice carries. I don't know if yours will.
Yes? Okay. So in my following with the candidates, I've been more involved than I've ever been. It's been very educational. In my observing of the candidates, there is absolutely no doubt that everybody on the stage has passion about what they're standing up for. But my question, well, in also observing, I've noticed there's 2 kind of candidates. There's one that really know how to fire up a crowd, but they're really not saying anything. It's more of describing something rather than really telling what they want to do in Washington specifically. And then there's others who do answer the questions, and it's not just firing up a crowd. So what I want to know is what you do for homework to really, what are you reading, what are you doing, what is your homework every day, so that you are truly prepared to go into Washington and not have things running so deep with the knowledge that you're gaining that you won't be crushed.
And which candidate are you asking that of?
John Kuzmich.
Okay, thank you.
You said that pretty well. Last name. I have to say that on some levels, everything I've done in my life, I believe, just by circumstances, prepared me well for this. My background's in economics. I'm an avid reader. I get up very early and read multiple papers every day. The Wall Street Journal. I'm looking at the Oregonian again because I'm running. But I fly through as many books as possible. And quite frankly, I own U.S. Nationwide Mortgage. I've been in banking and finance, so I've been in the thick of things with the housing, the economy. So just by my chosen profession, I've had to stare at this quite frequently. But I get up extremely early. I'm on the internet. I fly through so many articles, probably a couple hours a day worth to prepare. And So I'm pretty topical, and I tend to write a lot too as well. So I'm up on most of the issues just by my nature and my familiarity with those issues.
Okay, is there another candidate that would like to respond to that question? Okay, Doug?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. As a graduate of the Naval Academy, I started off with a lifelong learning, a belief in lifelong learning. Shortly after graduating, I probably didn't continue that right away, but I graduated with a degree in engineering and electrical and systems engineering. I've continued my lifelong learning at a master's from Oregon State University in ocean engineering. I have completed master's work at Willamette University for MBA. I've completed quite a bit of that same command and staff college, though not in a resident program. And I've taught at the Naval Academy. I didn't teach just engineering. I actually taught advanced modern history, which is taking a look at the perspective of world history and how that applies to current events. So a little bit of not just the engineering realm, but also the humanities realm. I'm very well read. I continue to read books every week, and probably about a member of the Book of the Week Club. So.
Okay. Rob?
Thank you. I too know that if you're going to represent
This district in Congress, you have to be up on the issues, and I appreciate the education I've received in Oregon and in university. But I have to tell you, one of the things about the government today that really disappoints me is that President Obama's administration, within that administration, he only has 7% of his advisors who've worked in the private sector. And my best education, quite frankly, I take a cue from my grandfather who's here tonight. And I won't embarrass my grandfather sitting over there. But my grandfather never received a college education because he went out and worked. And he received his education by getting his fingernails dirty. And that's what I've tried to do throughout my life. And my best education right now as a candidate is to speak to voters every single day. It's a tireless pursuit of mine. In fact, tonight I would be more enriched if we could turn around the spotlight to you and listen to you and your thoughts and feelings about what's happening in our country. That's how I'm best preparing as a candidate.
Let me see here. I was a reservist or guardsman reservist for over a 3-decade period. I served from Somalia all the way to Iraq and Afghanistan as a flight engineer and a maintenance guy. I also started my own business from scratch and all that stuff. I do have one question. I want to start this off a little bit. I don't want to seem a little aggressive, but Doug, you had said one time before that that you would like to open up air. Given the fact that during Iraq we wanted to keep the Israelis out of it with the Patriot batteries and all that, to keep them from getting into a greater air war. At one of the outings, you said you would prefer to give Israel free airspace across Iraq to bomb Iran. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Stephen, the actual question is your day-to-day preparations. So that's the current question right now. Having said that, you're allowed a follow-up question. So do you have a follow-up question that you would like to give? Okay.
With the answers that you hear from your candidates, is there going to be a point where you realize there's a candidate that's getting more votes, and are you willing to step down as you hear these answers?
And who is that directed to?
Well, I guess it,
I'm ready.
I just want to see how willing everyone is to step down when they realize, as we come together, are you guys going to continue the division, or are you actually going to come together and say, you know what, I think so-and-so has this, we need to support them, and step down and stop the competition?
Don't be afraid of my name, number one. It's Kuzmanich, but people hack it up all the time. So I'll get behind whoever candidate comes out of the primary. Some of the candidates, I really need to get clarification on the issues. I think there's some folks are vague, and I would like to hear what their stance are, because there are differences between the candidates in a primary. There's those that are more conservative and those that are less. There's those that you know, quite frankly, to join the Old Boys Network. And there's those that want to represent properly, and I just would like to hear clarification on a lot of the issues that matter to us. And at that point, yes, I'd get behind whoever the candidate is, because quite frankly, I believe just about anybody's better than David Wu.
Okay, is there another candidate that would like to respond? Seeing none, we'll go to the next question. Okay, the next ticket is 354. Okay, bringing the mic over to you.
Thank you guys for coming tonight. Thank you all the vets for serving our country, and thanks to the people for being here. Had a tea party out in Forest Grove, and there was 50 of us, so I thought that was pretty awesome. Okay, down to the question. Had a few of them here. I'll go for the best. Okay, the United States Constitution is under attack. Will you fight this socialist regime? Chicago-style politics are going full steam ahead. I've been betrayed by the Republican Party before. It appears to me that we can't wait. What are you going to do now?
And who are you directing that to?
I think I would like to direct that one to Rob Cornilles, or Cornelius. Sorry about that.
Rob, go for it.
Great question. The question, is this, we on? Here we go.
Regarding the Constitution, the first principle that I will take back to me as a U.S. Congressman is to reverence the Constitution, pure and simple. That's why I carry it, actually, with me everywhere I go. Because not enough voters understand what's in the Constitution. And when we talk about the Constitution, I understand what its purpose was. It was to limit government and liberate a people. And what we're seeing today is we're seeing an expansion of government which limits people. So we're going, based on the legislation that's being passed, based on an agenda that we see, we're just going the opposite direction that the Founding Fathers intended. Now, I can't read the minds of the Founding Fathers, but this document which they wrote has been a pretty darn good model, and I'm understating it, for the rest of the world for hundreds of years. And so as a U.S. Congressman, I will take seriously the oath, which is not only to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, but it's also to do so without any mental reservation. And I can assure you I have no reservation about keeping that oath.
Okay, do we have another candidate? Doug, you had your hand up first.
Quick job. Yeah, I agree. You know, Chicago-style politics, I don't like that at all. That's why I'm firmly right now, my campaign is above the board, transparent. If you want to know what I feel about things, you can go to my website. You can see exactly where I stand on every single issue. And if you don't want to go to my website, you can come and talk to me, and I'll give you some straight answers. I've already done that tonight on a couple of issues. Not sure I gave you the answer that you exactly wanted, but you got an answer that was direct and straightforward. So it starts right here in my heart, and it's gonna, and you know, one person at a time in Congress can change these things. Now, when we're talking about the government infringing on the Constitution, you bet. You know, the government's taken over banking, they're taking over automobile industries. Never before in the history of the country has the President of the United States fired a CEO of a company like they did with GM. That is crazy. We should not be allowing that to happen. You know, and then healthcare. Here we are, we're telling consumers exactly what they need to buy. The government's going to tell you what you have to buy. Never before in the history of the country has that happened. That's an infringement on your basic rights as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, do we want this to keep
Time
on?
is up.
Absolutely not.
Okay, Stephen?
On account of my forefathers fought and were band of brothers with the people that wrote the Constitution, Mifflin and James Wilson and such like that. First of all, we can't be afraid to change the 14th Amendment and add Section 6 so we can eliminate the gray area for illegal immigration, so they do not have birthright citizenship. If they're here illegally, that child does not have birthright citizenship. The second thing I would do would be to have a balanced budget amendment, put forth that, Greg Walden supports it, where the government can have no more than a government of 18% of GDP. Those are two things that I would do. Thank you, that's it.
Okay. Do we have any other, John?
Yeah, over a year ago today, I was at the town halls and the tea parties, the original one. I think I'm the only guy on stage, long before I was running for Congress, because I believe in these things intrinsically, the Constitution. I had one of the town halls, actually I got a question off to David Wu, I think I'm the only guy up here that's confronted him, and I asked just what you asked. I said socialism or capitalism is underlying all the issues of the day. We're not having that conversation and we need to have it. I absolutely believe we have, Congress has been operating on unconstitutional grounds, from the EPA trying to regulate as a pollutant CO2, which we breathe out, from the takeover of our companies to the absolutely to the healthcare mandate they're trying to put on us to pay for not doing anything, for not having insurance, also forcing us to actually purchase something for the first time. I stand with the 20 attorney generals that are bringing this, trying to bring a case to the Supreme Court. And I signed the repeal it pledge. I don't know if anybody else has done that up here, months before it was passed. I absolutely agree with what you say, and I'll go there and fight. I'm a Reagan conservative and a Tea Party guy from the beginning.
Okay. David?
Sure.
Okay, well,
It seemed to be much more a question geared towards the other candidates than it was for me.
okay, well, it's your time if you want it.
I would like to say that I do believe in our Constitution, and I do believe in our government, which is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And over the past couple of years, our government has been acting in the best interests of the people. It has stepped in to stabilize our financial industry. It has stepped in to stabilize our manufacturing and our job industry to the greatest extent possible. It's stepping in to correct the problems that with our financial institution and our overall economy that were created by years of neglect and deregulation. We are actually getting out of the business of owning those companies that ask for federal government help to keep them viable. They are already paying back their money that they borrowed. We are getting out of the ownership stakes, and federal government actually made a little bit of money along the way, so that's paying off the national debt.
Okay, you're entitled to a follow-up question. Would you like it?
Damn right.
The government took over the banks, took over a car company, fired the CEO, took all ownership away from the stakeholders and gave it to the unions. Wow, that's really going, man. That's awesome. There's a lot of people that are happy with our government, and I'm one of them. It's actually unhappy, very unhappy. About a year and a half ago, I started listening to some of the little rumblings that were going on, saying, hey man, there's a lot of bad stuff that's going to happen. And I started doing a lot of reading. And one book that I would recommend to anybody that really wants to understand
Do you have a question?
the miracle of our country is Get the 5,000-Year Leap.
That's a great book.
And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. The next number is 352. That would be me, right there.
It's nice to see you gentlemen here this evening. My name is David Bogner. I'm from Hillsboro. Been unemployed now for some time, and I haven't been very happy with the way not only the state government but the federal government has been treating the job situation. We seem to have forgotten that there are what, about 20% of the working population that are out of work. I'm wondering what Mr. Cornelius would do if elected to the House of Representatives to try and stimulate activities that would bring jobs back to Oregon and to the rest of the nation, for that matter.
Rob?
Thank you for your question, David. Several things. First of all, I'm a small business owner, as I mentioned, and I recognize right now why
Small business owners in Oregon are not producing jobs. They're sitting on their hands because the government is punitively doing things to penalize them for success. You know, we penalize success, but we seem to subsidize when people need help. And no wonder we're in debt. First thing I would do is I would make sure that we reduce the tax burden on American businesses and American individuals and families. As a small business owner, I can't expand, I can't grow, I can't hire if I am overtaxed to such an extent that it puts me out of business. Secondly, I would use the resources that we have here in Oregon, especially in Hillsborough, here in Washington County, with the terrific high-tech industry that we have. I would also promote Oregon. There's no reason that good businesses should be leaving this place. We have all the great natural resources that other states envy, and yet we're seeing a brain drain out of Oregon. It also starts making sure that our kids are educated so that they can compete globally. This has to be a place where people come to find and keep work.
Okay. Don. I like his name.
Yeah, I second what Rob says, and I'd like to even add to it. Small business is really the engine of the economy. In Oregon, 70% of the employment is small businesses. Nationwide, it's more like 60%. So if you want to help a small business owner out, what do? You don't raise taxes on him. You don't increase his operating costs, because what does he have to do? He has to do one of two things. He has to either raise the price of his goods and services, or he has to get rid of some of the people that are working for him. That's the only way he can survive as a business. If you cut the taxes on a small business, then he can invest. And he can buy the capital things that he needs to run his business. He can hire people, and that's where the answer to the job situation is exactly, Rob's exactly right. Capital gains tax cut, and along with that, to keep the country on a right balanced course, we've got to do some spending cuts and prioritize our budget, and not just let things keep getting out of hand. So we need to do what Ronald Reagan did, but we need to do it just a little bit better, because we didn't rein in spending back then. We need to rein in spending as well as do these tax cuts.
Okay. John, I think I saw you.
Yeah, we need to shrink the size and scope of the federal government and make it live within its means. Reagan had the game plan. When we get asked this question, none of us individually can deliver and bestow upon everybody tax cuts. So it's going to take speaking to the facts and bringing economic terms to the American people so they understand. So a lot of it's going to be about educating people. I believe my background makes me able to do that. Right now, they're operating in Keynesian economics, which is the basic story of that is the government pays people to put money in bottles, they bury it, and then the free market digs it up. Everybody's working, we're all happy. The truth is, no food was made. It was all busy work. And where did the money come from to shove in the bottles? That's the principles the government's operating under. We have to get back to free market principles, and we need to deregulate. We need to get off of our small businesses. And I'll tell you, in the banking industry, they are heavily regulating right now. Quite frankly, Senator Merkley, it's on the banking committee, he's doing it's ridiculous. Bank lending's at the lowest level for 1942, and we're all suffering, and our home values are as well. So we need to deregulate, cut taxes, corporate, personal, income, across the board, and shrink the size of the federal government and spending.
Mr. Robinson, as far as all of what you were talking about, as far as the federal government spending all that money, the federal government rolled back on revenue from about $2.7 trillion under Bush to 2.054 in 2008 when Obama was nominated. The 2009, the revenue is only 2.2 trillion, our revenue. We're bleeding $221 billion a month in deficit spending at $7 billion a day. The TARP, all that stuff, all the stuff you talk about, only amounted to $150 billion worth of GDP or hard revenue growth. So it did nothing. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, we can. What's his face? Gore talked about it. Kerry talked about it. Tax the rich, tax the rich. They've been on this 2% tax the rich thing now for a decade. So we got a 2% war tax, a 2% Oregon tax, a 2% tax on the rich, a 3.8 Medicare levy, a 55% increase for death tax, 2% repeal of the Bush tax, 24% capital gains tax, AMT, and basically what it's going to amount to is 33% on the people they call the so-called rich. They're going to take 33% of their money out of the retail sector, and that's not right.
Any other responses? David?
Sure, I'd like to take this opportunity. The last time this country had a balanced budget was in 2000. We had a balanced budget and we had a growing economy. That all switched around at the very beginning of 2001 when we started doing budget deficits with tax cuts. Nobody likes to pay taxes, but everybody wants the services that government provides. We have not cut back the services that we provided. Our budget stayed the same. I ask you, out of defense, Medicare, and Social Security, what cuts